Hi guys, welcome to the Marketing Techy live stream. I've been working on a couple of websites and making them more secure for customers. After in the last couple of months especially, we've heard so many reports of websites being hacked. We've seen on the websites that the Marketing Techy managers, more attempts as well at yeah, people trying to get into the website. So we'll just have a quick overview of why people want to do it, how they do it, what we can do to prevent it. So I'm mainly going to focus on WordPress websites because that's the biggest CMS being used around the web currently, and also we use it often for our own customers. So yeah, it's just a very common content management system. So looking at the security, first thing is we need to understand why people want to actually hack your website. So you could say, well, I've got a normal business website, nobody really wants to hack my website, would be interested in what I do. So because there are different reasons, your website could still be a target. First thing is, in the last 2 months, we've seen a lot of defacements, especially on WordPress websites. So WordPress has updated to a new version, but in a previous version, before they fixed this hole, there was a way for hackers to get into your website and actually change the content. So they could swap out photos, change the text on it. And hackers doing this, it's just basically for bragging rights. So they would go in, change stuff on your website, make sure that people visiting your website can see that it's been hacked, and yeah, so they can basically brag to their friends and fellow hackers that they actually hacked your website. And some high-profile companies and organizations, government organizations worldwide, were hacked in this way and their websites defaced. So that's one reason for people to actually try and hack into your website. Another one, and this is a critical one where a lot of people won't even notice that their websites have been hacked or their servers have been hacked, is hackers would try to get into your website to actually install malware. So what happens is there's a script, there's a piece of software on your server. When visitors come to your website, then the software can install onto their computers from your server, and they can get access to all sorts of information on private computers or business computers or servers from people visiting your website. And in a lot of cases, you won't even notice that this stuff is on your website. So that's another reason. It's for them to get access to private information, to get them to spread viruses, things like that. So, and then another common reason for people to hack into websites or servers is to actually gain access to your email services that's on your server. So they would use it basically to send out spam emails because it's not worth their while with spammy business products to really pay for their own emails or email servers, or risk their own email server getting blacklisted as spam. So they basically hack in and use your email server or services to send out their spam. So that's a terrible thing. Just one comment as we go along. If you've got a question, please just type it in the live chat. I will have a look at it every once in a while and answer your questions. If you are watching this website after the live broadcast on YouTube, just leave it, your comment or question in the comments below, and I will get to it and answer it there. I might even answer your question in a future video. So, okay, so now we know why people would like to get into your website or get access to it. So basically we need to have a look at how do we prevent them from getting in, how do we stop them from getting in. Okay, so basically there's quite a few security things that we can do. First off, your server has to be secure. So if you're hosting with a credible, reliable hosting provider, a lot of these settings would be taken care of for you. They would stop a lot of the attacks on their side. They would set up the server-side software so that a lot of these things won't be possible. So make sure you've got a reliable website hosting company hosting your website. That's number one. Secondly, if you've been developing on your server and you've been changing settings on your server software, like setting some of the debug features or feedback features because you're working on a website, just make sure you switch those off. Sometimes that's a way for hackers to gain access because If they can generate errors and get feedback from those errors, they've got a good idea of what's happening behind the scenes on the server side, and they can use that information to basically gain access. So if you switch all that feedback, the debug feedback off on your server, things like your PHP or script feedback, then yeah, it will make it harder for people to gain access to your website. That's the first thing. That's on the server side. Another thing, and this is probably the most important thing that you can do, make sure you've got backups of your website. So there's a couple of ways to backup. If you've been developing on a local machine, standalone machine, or developing the website on a development server, just make sure you've got a copy of that website before it goes live on the actual server. So that's just good practice, developing on a separate server, keeping a copy of that locally. Then second line of backup is on the actual server. A lot of services will, good hosting providers will actually back up on their server, and you can restore from there. And then third line of defense in backups is offsite backups. So I know this is not standard practice, but for my customers, what I normally like to do is, if it's a website that changes often, like an e-commerce website that takes orders and things, I would then back up those websites at least daily. So for daily backups, I like to do it at night when things aren't changing that much. And then yeah, for websites that are more static, that haven't got information that changes often, you could go weekly or monthly. And these backups we would do to a separate server that's geographically far removed. So for instance, a lot of our customers are in South Africa, and to make their websites load fast for their local customers, we host their websites in South Africa, and then we would set up a backup server in maybe the US where storage space is quite cheap, and we would back up this website on a regular interval that's automated to the US server. So if anything happens locally at that hosting company or in that area, then at least we could get the website back up and running very fast, just using a different hosting provider. Okay, so that's backups are key. So even if everything goes wrong, you can actually still restore your website and get your website back up and running. Okay. Then the last line of defense, and this is quite important, is when you're looking at WordPress servers or WordPress websites, first thing, make sure your WordPress installation is always updated. Okay, so WordPress, the organization that writes WordPress, these developers, as flaws are discovered in the security, as hackers figure out new ways of gaining entry into a WordPress website, WordPress would then update their software, the actual WordPress software, and you would just see a new version coming out, and you can just upgrade from within WordPress. So the one thing is, keep going back to your WordPress dashboard and upgrading WordPress. Okay, this is key for security. If you're not doing this, you're leaving holes open for hackers to get in. Okay. Then the next thing is, it's a good idea to have a reputable security plugin. So one that's quite common is WordFence. It's worked well for me in the past. If you install WordPress, there's a little tutorial that starts up after you activate the plugin, and step by step it takes you through activating it and getting the firewall to run. And this will also block attempts when people are doing things like trying to guess your passwords or usernames and trying to gain access to WordPress. So these attempts will be blocked by a nice reputable security plugin. Okay. Then the next thing that you can do is also look at having two-factor authentication for your WordPress. So if your administrators or authors or anybody who's working on the website signs in, two-factor means they usually get a code on their cell phone, either by SMS or an app. You might know apps like Authy or the Google Authenticator app that generates a code. So you normally can log in with a username and password. In this case, you need username, password, and the code, and that just gives anybody that hasn't got access to your cell phone or mobile phone another thing that they need to try and figure out to get into your website. So yeah, third line of defense. So that works well. Last thing in WordPress, as well, make sure that you don't use default administrator usernames like admin or administrator. That's usually the first two that hackers try to guess when they're trying to log into a website. Also, make sure you're using secure passwords. Okay, so longer passwords, using all the different characters, special characters, uppercase, lowercase, using numbers. Make sure it's a decent long password that can't be guessed. Okay. A lot of the times when hackers try to gain access to your website, they're actually going through your normal login and they're just running words or combinations of common used passwords trying to get in. So that's where a nice security plugin will stop as soon as they see a lot of attempts from one IP address. It will block that IP address, and then also if your password is hard to guess, then at least you've got more time to go and stop that intrusion. Okay. So again, if you've got any questions, just leave them in the comments. And just the last thought, make sure all your WordPress plugins, WordPress themes, and WordPress itself is always updated. That's key to having good security on a website. Okay, hope you enjoyed it. See you for the next one.